There's a 3-play sequence from the Philadelphia Eagles game against the New Orleans Saints from last season that captures the skill set of defensive lineman Javon Hargrave. The first play comes on second down. The Saints are going to run a screen to the left side, the narrow side of the field. They catch a defense playing man coverage, so the slot receiver drags one defender across the field with his route, and the wider receiver pushes a second defender down the sideline. Alvin Kamara comes from the opposite side of the quarterback and follows 2 lead blockers into that space. Kamara is clear, but he overruns his first blocker so he has to stop his feet. This forces him to wait and look for the cutback option. He still gains 8 yards, so it's a good play for the offense. We need to switch to the end zone angle to get a full appreciation of the impact that Hargrave has on this play. He's the defensive tackle to the screen side of the field. He comes off the ball and is facing a double team with the left guard widening and the centre coming across to meet him too. Hargrave doesn't let the left guard engage him and his eyes are up so he can see in the backfield. Quarterback Andy Dalton has the ball behind Kamara and is looking in the opposite direction, so there's no suggestion of a run play. Kamara is setting up the pass block so the screen hasn't been tipped off. There's no reason that Hargrave should be able to anticipate the screen or stop his rush towards the quarterback, so he rightfully keeps working across the face of the centre. When the centre disengages him, Hargrave's momentum is pulling him away from the play. The screen was well executed and Hargrave shouldn't be criticised for putting himself in this position. The difference between him and most defensive linemen is he instantly recovers from this position. He doesn't express his frustration, stop playing, or allows momentum to carry him further into the pocket. He redirects as fast as he would if he was chasing the quarterback for a sack behind the line of scrimmage. This appetite to chase the play might have looked like it was in vain on the overhead angle initially, but that's not the case. Hargrave plays a vital role when Kamara looks to cut back. Because he pursued so quickly, he impacts Kamara's thought process. Kamara wants to plant his foot hard, cut back in field aggressively, and set up the deep defender to go to the inside shoulder of his second blocker. That would free the running back up to sprint down the sideline and run away to space. But because Hargrave is there, Kamara is forced to stop his feet and stick behind his first blocker. He has to wait for him to clear before he can advance further. By that time, the rest of the defense has swarmed to surround him and limit the gain to single figures. Hargrave's effort, discipline, and athleticism saved the defense from potentially giving up a huge gain. While it doesn't stand out like a sack, it potentially saved the defense 20 yards. The second play comes on 3rd and short. The Saints put Taysom Hill in shotgun and they're going to run him in power off the left side. They just about get the first down. Hargrave was the defensive tackle to the play side again. The Saints run right at him, and while he couldn't prevent the first down, he still showed off his ability against the run. Hargrave is in the B gap. That's the space between the left guard and the left tackle. He is double teamed by those players at the snap, but he isolates onto the left tackle so that the left guard doesn't have a large surface area to hit. His low centre of gravity and stout lower body allow him to hold his position. The hit of the left guard has minimal impact before that player leaves, so it's a one-on-one with the left tackle. We can see that Hargrave's head is on the blocker's inside shoulder when he starts to drive the left tackle backwards. He's going to let the run play develop before mirroring it across the field so that his head is now on the tackle's outside shoulder. This puts him in position to meet Hill in the hole without overplaying it to create a cutback lane. Hargrave can't stop Hill in his tracks, but he's the first defender to get a hit on the ball carrier, and he did so at the line of scrimmage. The final play in this sequence sees Dalton go under centre and execute a play fake. The Saints are seeking out a shot play with 2 vertical routes going downfield and a check down option in the right flat. They're playing quarters, but the play is going to develop in such a way that it essentially becomes cover 2 man. Dalton has nowhere to go and is sacked for a loss on 1st and 10. Since it was first down, Hargrave moved into a 3-4 defensive end position. He's lined up over the left tackle at the beginning of the play. That's where the Saints run their play fake too, so Hargrave has to respect that and account for the running back instead of flying upfield off the snap. He gets into the perfect position on the left guard's outside shoulder, and then he instantly diagnoses the play fake so that he can work on closing to the quarterback. He accounted for the running play and was still able to attack the passing play. The control here is critical. Hargrave doesn't aggressively chase upfield. He moves upfield to get the left guard turned, then uses his inside arm to drive him backwards. This entices Dalton to run through the pocket, where he's tripped up by the left guard. You might be forgiven for thinking that was a lucky play, but he purposely closed the pocket on the quarterback and showed off great control and athleticism in doing so. If he had crashed upfield or crashed inside, the quarterback would have had an easier escape. The San Francisco 49ers never really replaced DeForest Buckner after trading him. Javon Kinlaw hasn't worked out. So they needed a complementary interior rusher to play alongside Arik Armstead and Nick Bosa. Hargrave isn't as good as Buckner, and he'd be second to Daron Payne in terms of this year's free agent defensive tackles, but his skill set perfectly fits what the 49ers need. Hargrave is just an acceptable run defender, but his impact is primarily felt on passing plays. The Eagles' defensive line widens on this play against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's an obvious passing situation, so the Eagles' wide 9 defensive ends stretch the Steelers' offense defensive line so that Hargrave has space to work in between the tackles. Hargrave begins the play by aggressively stepping to his left, but then immediately pushes back in the opposite direction. He has the left guard, number 69, committing to his right side. The Steelers player doesn't move very far, but it shifts the angle for Hargrave and it allows the defensive tackle to cross his face and get to his outside shoulder without moving himself too wide of the quarterback in the pocket. You can see Hargrave's posture as he angles his upper body into the guard who is standing upright. Hargrave is in control here now. He turns the corner while preventing the guard from gaining depth. We can again see the differences in their body posture, and at this point of the play, we can zoom in to see how Hargrave has his hands inside to the chest of the blocker. This is what is allowing him to corkscrew around the blocker without being pushed to the outside or without the blocker gaining depth. From here, Hargrave shows his technique and uses his low centre of gravity to sweep his left arm through the body of the blocker and penetrate through to the quarterback in the pocket. After putting the left guard on his back, he then does a phenomenal job of chasing Pickett down to knock the ball out from behind at a full stretch. The finish of that play is spectacular, but the way in which he beat the blocker is just as impressive, although more subtle. This is the Houston Texans centre Scott Quessenberry, and this is where he found himself at the end of one of his plays against Hargrave. Hargrave is lined up at nose tackle, but he's offset to the left shoulder of Quessenberry. The Texans are an empty, so there's no extra pass protection. The Eagles know this, and they attack it by forcing the offensive line into one-on-one matchups by their alignment before the snap. Hargrave is again going to rely on his quick feet to beat the centre. He makes a hard plant off his left foot and crosses the face of Quessenberry. The centre makes a critical mistake here by bending at the waist and lunging forward. This exposes him to Hargrave's quickness. He uses his hands to encourage the centre further off balance as he penetrates through the pocket, closing onto the quarterback for the sack, while Quessenberry winds up way out of the play. In one of his final games for his old team, Hargrave notched a sack against his new team. He's the right side defensive tackle here, lined up over the left guard. When the ball is snapped, we again see Hargrave push outside off his left foot and cross the face of his opponent quickly. But what we see more clearly from the overhead angle is how Hargrave uses his hands at the same time. This freeze frame shows us how he bends his upper body away from the extended arms of the blocker. This affords him the space to push the blocker's hands upwards. A key detail here is he gets his hand on the elbow. This locks the arm of the blocker and makes it easier for him to win the matchup. That's all Hargrave needs to get level, and if he's level with any lineman who doesn't have his hands on him, he's unstoppable. Hargrave is too fast, too balanced, and has too low centre of gravity to be stopped from that position. Hargrave's athleticism allows him to line up wider than your typical defensive tackle and still successfully rush the passer. Here he lines up over the left tackle and is going to beat the left guard by first widening him. The left guard actually does a great job of mirroring Hargrave and then matching his level at the point of contact. But there are two key details. One we can see here at the start of the play. Hargrave's right foot is planted and he's driving his weight up through it to power into the blocker. He's getting leverage at the same time as generating his power. We can see him successfully march the left guard back towards the quarterback, and he does so easily. It's that easy in part because of Hargrave's athleticism, but just before he detaches we can see where his hands are. He's got the inside position, so he's driving up through the chest and just inside the shoulder of the offensive lineman. He's taking away that player's balance. Although he's very much a speed-based defensive tackle when it comes to his footwork, Hargrave's hands are heavy, lightning quick, and intensely violent. He won't get the sack on this play against the New York Giants and Daniel Jones. Defensive tackles typically don't get huge sack numbers. Hargrave has 18.5 in his last 2 seasons. That's a huge number. But the real value of him as a pass rusher is the constant pressure and chaos that he creates in the quarterback's face through the middle of the pocket. Again, Hargrave widens the blocker with a strong outside first step. This time the purpose is to get the defender to overextend and show his chest. Hargrave steps outside but changes his body shape as he does so that he can immediately redirect upwards and square to the blocker. The blocker is bending forward, so he's already in a bad position. You can see how Hargrave powers into the blocker so that he slides backwards. Hargrave's last point of contact is his left hand on the blocker's right elbow. He's using brilliant technique to clear his way to the quarterback. The left guard has one final opportunity to recover when Hargrave is slowed down by running into the centre, but the defensive tackle just keeps going through that second blocker to get into Jones's face. The left guard couldn't clamp down and seal him off because he had already lost his footing. Hargrave will win one-on-one matchups in space using his speed. He'll blow up the middle of pockets against bigger linemen using his strength. And critically, he's also an excellent stunt rusher. This is very important because if everyone on the defensive line is a threat to win one-on-one matchups, and everyone on the defensive line can effectively stunt, then offensive linemen are constantly doubting themselves and constantly in reactive positions rather than proactive positions. This makes it easier to set them up for pass rushing moves or put them off balance. They have to be wary of the threat and the speed of stunt plays that could come at any time. If you have bigger, heavier defensive tackles, they can't run the way they need to make stunt rushes work. Hargrave just turned 30 years of age. He's a great athlete who plays with discipline in the run game and shows off great effort while playing a lot of snaps. It's very unlikely that he gets paid and suddenly becomes lazy or unmotivated. The 49ers might need to add another edge rusher, but they're primed to be one of the best, if not the best defense in the NFL again this year. They signed a key piece away from a Super Bowl team last year, and they're hoping he can be a key piece to their Super Bowl team this year.